If you have the desire to do something meaningful with your life, but you're too afraid to actually go out and do it, then you're letting fear ruin your life. And you need to stop that. Otherwise, you risk living your whole life feeling unhappy and unfulfilled, and then ending up on your deathbed full of regrets, feeling miserable, and feeling like you missed out on all the opportunities you had and you didn't take. To help you avoid this somewhat tragic fate, in this video I'm going to show you how you can take power away from your fears and redirect it towards something more meaningful and more productive, so you can actually go out there and do the things you want to do and create the life you want to live. Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Simona and I'm a certified Jungian life coach and a yoga teacher based in the UK. And on this channel we explore tools and strategies to help you reach your fullest potential and create your dream life. Today we're talking about fear, the fear of starting something new. First of all, what is fear? Well, according to Google, fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the threat of pain, danger or harm. From an evolutionary standpoint, fear is very useful. It alerts us to when there is potential danger and it allows us to choose to either fight or flee. If we do survive that event, then what happens is the circumstances surrounding that dangerous event get imprinted on our mind and we remember to avoid whatever it is that put us in danger in the first place. This could be anything from the location or time of day to a certain decision we made or an action we took. This way we can learn from our past experiences and we can adapt so that we can avoid dangerous situations and we can increase our chances of survival. This mechanism of learning from our past experiences and adapting our behavior accordingly is what's called conditioning in behavioral psychology. And it happens unconsciously, starting from the moment we're born. Even today, when we don't need to worry about being eaten by a tiger, we're still letting fear run our life and make our decisions for us, which often leaves us feeling miserable and unfulfilled, because it really prevents us from taking action and doing the things we want to do. But we're here to fix it today. So let's go back to the actual definition of fear. Remember that fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the threat of danger, pain, or harm. So the keywords here are unpleasant emotion. All it is just an emotion. Fear is an emotion that is unpleasant. It feels not good in your body. And that's it. That's all you're afraid of. So if you really think about it, what's stopping you all this time is just the reluctance to feel discomfort. It's an unwillingness to make yourself feel uncomfortable. And while yes, I completely agree that it's not nice to feel uncomfortable, also we just have to realize that it's simply a sensation in the body, a feeling that you feel from within, and that's all it is. And you have to realize as well that it's completely normal to feel this way. No one wants to be uncomfortable. And in fact, Sigmund Freud came up with this principle called the pain-pleasure principle, which basically suggests that humans act or make decisions to avoid pain and discomfort, and also they make decisions and act to create and increase pleasure. So if you're an aspiring creator or want to start your own business, you're probably facing this conundrum as well, where you're kind of having to deal with the discomfort of putting yourself out there and stepping outside your comfort zone, and you're kind of avoiding that in favor of staying in the safety of your past conditioning and just doing what you've always done and what everyone else is doing. But I want you to know that this resistance you're feeling is 100% overcomable. You can overcome it and you can step into your higher potential and you can express your purpose and you can create your dream life. All you need to do is redirect the energy from fear towards creation. So to do that, we must first examine your fear. The first type of fear is the fear of judgment or criticism. You're afraid of what would people say, what would people think, people would judge me, people would think I'm weird, what would my friends, my family, my colleagues say and think about me or what I'm doing. You're worried they would laugh at you, they would dismiss you, they would discard you completely, and that's very, very common fear. I felt it, we all have felt it. The next category is fear of failure. Fear of I'm not good enough, what if I try to do this thing and I put myself out there and then I fail? And the last category is the fear of success. Now this one is a little bit more subtle and you might be thinking, oh, but of course I'm not afraid of success, like that's what I want to be successful, like bring it on. But actually, have you really stopped to think about what that involves and what it really takes to be successful? And what would it mean for you to be successful and live the life you envision? What would you need to trade off and what we need to give up on in order to achieve that and maintain that? So it's just something to think about. Maybe that's a little bit more subtle but still present. Okay, now that we've looked at the three categories that most fear falls into when it comes to starting a business or launching something new, now it's time to actually think about how can we face that fear, how can we overcome it, and how can we come out on top and really step into our fullest potential and create our dream life. Well, the way to do that is to ask yourself a series of questions which are specifically designed to shine a light on that fear and really bring up to the surface all the things you've been suppressing or avoiding facing, which have been holding you hostage essentially in your mind and preventing you from creating that dream life you so desire. I'll walk you through this process right now, but you can also download a free PDF guide that I've included in the description box below, which will walk you through the whole process, and you can take your time to journal through the questions, answer the questions for each specific fear that you have, and really go a little bit deeper than the scope of this video. So I hope you'll find that guide helpful, and again, you can just download it for free in the link that's included in the description box below. Okay, so let's get into the whole process here. Before we start with the first question, I want you to know that this is a somewhat uncomfortable process, and that's the whole point. Remember, facing your fear is an uncomfortable process, and again, fear itself is an uncomfortable emotion. So it's okay, as long as we acknowledge that and we know what we're getting into, it's fine. Know that you're safe, and you can stop at any moment if it feels like it's too much. But the whole point is to actually face the thing that we've been avoiding this whole time. Okay, question number one is, what would be the worst case scenario if my fears did come true and were a reality? So for example, with the first fear, the fear of being judged and criticized, well, ask yourself, what if that was true? Like, what would be the worst case scenario, the worst possible outcome if that was actually true? So if people did criticize you and did judge you, what's the worst case? Well, that would mean that maybe you get kicked out of school, maybe you get fired, maybe your family disowns you, maybe your relatives stop talking to you, maybe everyone you know stops talking to you, and you become completely isolated, let's say. So that would be literally the worst case scenario. And then you go a bit deeper. You ask yourself, well, what would be so bad about that? So you look at the worst case scenario and you ask yourself, what would be so bad about that? And then you answer. For example, well, what would be so bad about being completely isolated? Well, you would feel lonely, you would feel miserable, you would feel alone, depressed, just sad. And now let's push it even further. And I know that this is kind of uncomfortable, but let's go with it. So what would be so bad about being completely isolated and miserable and uncomfortable and sad? Well, you would be left out. You would no longer be part of the community. And what if that was the case for the rest of your life, forever? No one ever talked to you again. Well, you would not be part of the tribe. You would not be part of society. You would be discarded, dismissed, and vulnerable, ultimately. And then you ask yourself, well, why would it be valuable for my ego to protect me from this fate at all costs? And basically here it comes down to the survival element. So for example, why would it be valuable for the ego to make sure that a human being doesn't end up isolated and not part of society or not part of the tribe? Well, because if you're not part of a tribe, then you had a higher risk of being eaten by predators or starving to death or meeting any other tragic fate and just dying prematurely, essentially not surviving. So if you're not part of the tribe, you have a lower chance of survival. So the ego's job is to protect you from that. So that fear of being isolated and not being part of society anymore is still very much present within us. It's all about survival and making sure that we don't die alone, essentially. And so that's the root of that fear of being judged and being criticized. Because if you're judged and criticized, the fear is, oh, I will be discarded, I will be dismissed, no one wants to talk to me, I'll be all alone. Well, what's so bad about that? Well, if I'm all alone, I will not be part of the tribe, and thus I have a higher chance of dying prematurely. And when you look at it that way, it becomes more like, oh, that's it? That's what the fear has been all about? And you can just like, let it go. It all of a sudden starts to lose its power over you because you've really gone deep and you've looked at the essence of that fear. You've shone a light on what that fear is all about. And when you shine a light on the things you've been suppressing, you've been pushing away, then it's no longer strong. You no longer feel that power because you're now seeing what it's all about. Whereas before it was unknown, and the unknown is always scarier. Okay, after you ask yourself these questions, the next step number 2, is to sit with the feelings. So remember that uncomfortable feeling of vulnerability and fragility that you felt when you kind of went through the questions. Maybe you didn't feel it during this video, but if you do the exercise from the free PDF guide that I've included in the description below, you will feel strong emotions, strong feelings come up within you. And now step number 2 is to sit with those feelings. Become friends with them. Invite them over for lunch, for dinner, and acknowledge them. Tell them that you see them and that they're valid, because they are, really, evolutionary speaking. Like, it's extremely valid to make sure that you remain part of the tribe and you remain part of of a group so that you can ensure your survival. Like, that makes a lot of sense. And it's important that we thank and appreciate that kind of tendency and the ego's job, which has been to make sure we survive. But now we are also stepping into the higher self, and we're taking the reins of our life, and having acknowledged those feelings, we can then move on to step number 3. Step number 3 is to make your mission, your purpose, your big vision more important and more powerful than your need to stay safe and your need to avoid the discomfort of facing your fear. So here, the pain of not living your purpose should be greater than the pain of the worst case scenario of your fear coming true. Doing the thing that you really want to do, doing your purpose, should be more valuable and more important to you than what you stand to lose if your worst fear came true. If you channel your creative energies and your willpower towards creating your dream life and living your purpose, then you take away that creative energy away from fear and from thinking about what could happen and what is the worst thing that could take place and all that stuff. Focusing solely on your purpose and on your mission means you're channeling creative energy towards your goals and towards making things happen, and away from the hypothetical fear-based scenarios that the ego mind likes to come up with to try and keep you stuck and keep you in the comfort zone. Another thing you can do is you can ask yourself, what is more important to me? To people please and be part of the tribe and do what everybody else is doing and be liked at all costs, bending over backwards to blend in, not stand out? Or is it more important to you to step into your highest potential and express that purpose, that vision, create that dream life you have in your mind that you know you're capable of having, and risk maybe alienating a few people or not being part of the same old group that you were in before? But keep in mind that once you shift into that new space, that new you will create a new group of people who are more in line with the vision that you have and with the life that you want to lead. Another tool you can use here is the concept of death. So think about this for a second. What if you only had 1 week left to live? How would you spend it? Would you spend it feeling anxious and worrying about what people would think or say about you? Or would you spend it actually creating the thing you've always wanted to do and not worrying about what people think or what people would say? Finally, my last tip for you is to take action every single day that moves you closer to your vision and closer to you living your purpose. So all it takes is one action, one little step every single day, and you'll start to train that muscle to build that strength of resilience and discipline, and you will slowly become more confident. You will step into that higher self and you will prove to yourself that you can do it, that you are capable, and that the only thing stopping you is your own mind, your own fears. The fears can only stop you if you feed them, as opposed to shining a light on them through the questions that we laid out up above. And your fears are only as strong as the energy you give them. So if you don't feed the fears, then they're not going to control you and they're not going to be ruining your life. And before you know it, one step at a time, you will be creating your dream life and you will be living the vision that you've always had in your mind. Again, if you want to go through the questions at your own time, then you can download the free PDF guide that's in the description below called How to Overcome Your Fear and Take Action Today. If you want to check out this video right here, if you want to go deeper on how to live your purpose and create your dream life, I will see you there. And if you enjoy content like this, feel free to subscribe so you don't miss my next video. Bye bye.